So this morning we are going to discuss about management functions. Yeah, management functions. And if you remember, a few weeks ago, Engineer Ricky has actually shared his experience about being a manager, being a very good manager, moving up from being a very good engineer to become a very good manager. Yeah, and I think it also came out in the test number 1, more or less. We should be able to tell the difference, hopefully, so that we can function accordingly. How do we function as a very good engineer, a good technical person, and how do we actually function as a good manager, when it involves other people other than our own group of expertise. And today we are going to actually extend our discussion on going a little bit deeper on what does manager do, and what is the difference between manager and a leader. And actually there is another term that has not come in any of the publications. I always consider, at least in the university setting, we know that there is another group we call administrator. So there is an administrator, sometimes they are also manager, and sometimes they also lead, or sometimes they also leader in organization. But most of the discussion that we see in the management field, we are actually seeing the discussion between the management functions and also the leadership functions. Anyway, we will discuss this overall concept, and hopefully it can be very useful to us later on, where we can actually position ourselves, or we can actually function ourselves according to job specification that we have. Because sometimes if we are supposed to be a technical engineer, we're supposed to do our function as a technical engineer, technical person. And our job is actually being an administrator, we need to function as an administrator. And even if sometimes we are already a leader some way, but in some other job, some other function, some other organization, we need to function as a leader or as a manager, or as an administrator. We need to play our role according to our functions. Of course, we need to build our capacity as much as possible in all these 3 aspects. But then when it comes to a clear role, we need to be able to function according to that role, so that the organization can function as cohesive units. Because we do not want an organization where everyone is administrator, or where everyone is a manager, or where everyone is a leader. In any organization, for them to actually function, of course, this is just a preamble. For organization to actually function, they must have workers, they must have administrators, they must have manager, and they must have leaders. So that it just this is like a mechanics or the engine of an organization to actually function. Without any one of these, group, the organization will probably fail. So I believe that you can actually see the slide that I'm sharing, Prof. Rahim. And I'm sharing the Google Meet, the Mentimeter survey that you have.
Yes, it is there.
It is there, right? And this is just, of course, this response before we have our discussions, and most of you having captured, manager is also a leader, and people-centered, responsible, motivating, controlling, respectful. I think these are, and interpersonal skills. These are good indications of your good understanding of manager. What is a manager? Who is actually a manager? And you can see a slight difference between manager and leaders. So you are actually seeing leader as someone who is actually responsible, someone who's supposed to show examples. When we talk about leadership, of course, and also management, from a small organization to a very big organization, even like our country. So I think it has a full spectrum, and obviously when you answer these questions, I'm sure that different people would have a different settings where you actually answer this question. This is why some of you have this charisma, inspiring, reliable, dedicated. These are actually all good words that actually reflecting. But I think the word captured what many of you consider to consider to be describing the leader. Yeah? So for today's session, I'm going to bring to you 5 concepts of management function. Of course, the key presentation will be about knowing the management functions. I think this is more specific and more detailed than what Professor Dr. Ricky have actually shared. Dr. Ricky have actually shared practically his experiences. Yeah. But I think this is what you're pretty much going to get from any management course, any management books, any management training. And it's quite obviously that we are trying to capture this concept that people actually do master's business administration to actually learn. So apparently this is just an appetizer, basically, and hopefully by the time we come out of this 1 hour and 2 hour session, we are a bit more comfortable in knowing, and then knowing the key functions, and then when we actually read, when we are facing the situations where we need to be manager or we need to be leader, we just need to know how to play our role. I think this is what I'm trying to describe, playing our role. So even in my case, as an example, if I can use my case as an example, even Professor Rahim has gone through the example as well. So being a head department sometime, we need to administrate, you need to become good administrator, you need to become a very good manager, and you also sometimes need to become a very good leader. Yeah. And there are many key messages that I would like to share with all of you, and I have actually put them in my PowerPoint. Let me just share now the PowerPoint part. I hope you can actually see the PowerPoint quite clearly, right? So there are many important messages that these videos have actually delivered, right? But I think if we start ourselves by thinking, what do we do after we first graduate, right? So when you come out, from your study and become an engineer, yeah. So basically, you're going to do your job as an engineer or doing something very technical, something that's actually solving very specific issues, right? And this is what going to happen to you after you become slightly more experienced. Then your company probably asks you to lead, engineering team. Yeah. So this is what you lead engineering team, but still within your technical expertise. Yeah. And but the Peters principles will come into the picture the moment you are going further up into not just managing or doing the leading the technical team that to supposed to complete an engineering design or engineering task or project task. You are actually you would be given hopefully later on as you progress as a function as people who actually manage different groups of people. Yeah, manage different group of people, meaning to say you probably have to manage the clerk, you have to manage the administrators, you have to manage the financial officers, you have to manage. So this is the the changes and the transformation that you all going to see as you move your ladders, as what Engineer Ricky has actually mentioned. Although you need to be actually very strong in our technical skills, there's no doubt, but we need to be able to project and plan and expect ourselves to somehow become a manager, or even to some extent later become a leader of a certain organization. Yeah. But the trouble with this management and leadership, we hardly, or at least people in engineering disciplines in our areas, we hardly learn much. So I think, given our own personal experience, like ourselves, we go and learn, and we do our masters, we do our PhD, and we come back and teach. But then, okay, you can do well in teaching, or you can be comfortable in teaching, but at some point in time, you will be appointed as head of department, where now you are just not just teaching your subject, you are organizing your department. Yeah. You're organizing your department, you're organizing people in different areas, although they are still teaching, but they are actually teaching a different subject. And later on, you probably, not just cutting across your not just dealing with people across your department, you will be later on becoming, a manager or a leader, or, in the case of our faculty, becoming a deputy deans, or maybe even a dean to some extent. Yeah? And this is what our first video mentioned about, the Peter's principles. Most of the time, people who get this responsibility because they do their job well at their technical expertise. Yeah. So I think, if there is any simple message that I would like to deliver to you, is that, be very good in your areas, be very good in the job that you need to do, and your leaders, the people who are above you would later on, you would later on be quote unquote upgraded or appointed to become a leader or manager of more people. Yeah. But this is what the Peter's principle comes in. People who are actually doing well in one aspect, are being promoted to the area where they are not competent yet. But I think this is the basic idea that we want to actually have, is that we just need to be mentally prepared and probably know how to to do our job well when we become a manager. Yeah. So there are, I consider it to be, if we can actually consider to be steps in our career progression. You talk about engineering, being an engineer, or being a doing our job well in technical field. And then being a technical manager, meaning to say that, we are organizing few people, a few engineers within our discipline. And then we can become what we call as a project manager. Project manager has a bigger number of people that we are organizing, and people who may not be even in our technical field. And later on, we can even become what we call as operation manager, where it is just not about finishing and completing a project. You are also talking about running an organizations. Yeah? This is what we call as operation manager. I'm very certain that many of you will become an owner of your own businesses, and owner of your own, a leader and of your own organization. This is where we need to be able to somehow, at least mentally prepared to become what we call as operation manager. And of course, the subject of leadership is something that is actually going to be quite different, and this is not going to be covered in our discussion. But I think it is good to put in perspective. There are, as our speakers in the videos mentioned, that it is managers and leaders are two sides of the same coin. Of course, we will discuss this a little bit more. Yeah. So being a technical person, being a technical manager, being a project manager, and being an operation manager is somehow is a career progressions that I would like you to be able to see. And obviously, each one of these would have a difference, would require a different skill sets. And this is what we're going to discuss in this particular slides. And also there are two, when we talk about what we call as operation management, then we talk about the two key components in any organization. That is organizing the people and also organizing the resources. Yeah, this is what we call as organizational management is all about. Yeah. So maybe we can go into if we put ourselves into a setting of any organization, of course, a business entity is just an example of any organization. A faculty, an NGO, are also relevant organization. But I think here most of the time you will be involved in what we consider as a business organization, and typically in any business organization would have what we call as five different functions. Yeah, of course, some organization would have one function more important than the others, but never they would have in order for any business organization to actually succeed, it has to some extent innovation. They need to do a little bit more innovations, R&D, and therefore new product and designs. This is what many of us probably will do later on in our life. So management is basically, if we can see ourselves in organization, so basically management is all about the process of working with people and resources. So this is the two big items that we want to actually be able to pick up from any organization. Yeah, and of course to effectively and efficiently. So and again, this is another two keywords that I hope we can actually understand and differentiate how a management or a manager work with people and resources to effectively and efficiently accomplish the organizational goals. So organizational goals is another key objective, because this is what the managers do. Managers must know the KPI. In our organization we call it KPI. But even if you take an example of a football team like Liverpool, what is the goals of the team? Is actually winning maybe every game, or winning the Premier League. Yeah, so that's an organizational goal for say a team like Liverpool, right? And what the managers do, of course, the manager is actually organizing the people and whatever resources that they have to effectively and efficiently, effectively and efficiently to actually reach that goal. Yeah. So basically, this is the art of getting, of getting things done. So this is what the management is all about. We find different ways and means to actually, and sometimes we find different people and different resources, different ways and means to actually do that. So that's what the concept of the whole management is all about. Yeah. And therefore, if there is what management is all about, so the manager is someone who actually coordinates and oversees the work of other people. Yeah, it is not just his work, the work of other people in order to accomplish that goals that he has decided. So, meaning to say that if you have reached the highest level of management, then you need to be able to see all these five functional areas. Of course, in each of these five functional areas, they have their own management levels. You have human resource manager, you have production manager, you have marketing manager, you have finance manager, also have a R&D manager. So again, we will see that we will see ourselves in different level of management. Yeah, but this is what generally the slides practically capture what management is doing and what the functions of manager in a way. Yeah. So if you can see this in a more graphical forms, we see that we have generally we have five different functional areas of any organization or any businesses. And just like in any organization, this pyramid form of management level may come. I probably want to come in here and says that this structure is actually a traditional, what we call a traditional pyramid form of management. Yeah, and I think it is actually made easier when an organization is actually in one physical space, in one physical functions, like universities now. Yeah, but moving forward, I think we all need to be preparing ourselves to work in an environment where an organization is actually not being confined by a space. An organization is actually business that actually not confined by the 5 business functions, and I think we need to be ready for that. But what we are actually sharing with you today is what we call as a traditional, business organization, and therefore a traditional pyramid form of management level. Yeah, I'm very certain that many of you are already aware. In the gig economy, people work on their own mostly, and they are actually doing a lot of what we call as outsourcing. What they need. They don't have their own finance manager. They just outsource, someone else to do the finance and the accounting for them, as an example. They don't do their own marketing. They just focus on their product. They just focus on their technology. They just focus on their services. It is, other organization. They just simply pay other organization to do the marketing. So, new business will take a different form, and I think we also should be prepared in a way of facing the new form of organization. And many of this concept of management also will have to be revised, and will have to be updated, and also will have to be twisted in a way to suit a different way of doing business. Yeah, so I probably want to to quote unquote not warn, to preempt what is actually coming. It is already there now out there, where a lot of people, I think Shopee, Lazada, Alibaba and Amazon. A lot of people are actually doing business and organizing their business activities using those platforms and using those functions. And obviously, the traditional management level would be it is still there. There's no doubt, but it will be taking a different shape and functions now. Yeah. But conceptually, we can see that there are people who actually are helping us, non-managerial employees. So if you are actually providing, services to provide, food, to provide food that is actually being delivered by other people. So we have people who are actually producing the food, yeah, and then we have people who actually what we call as a first line manager. And then if as our business actually going big and big, we probably need to have all the way to the level of we have always hear this assistant manager, project manager, operation manager, and also general manager. So as of course the management responsibility will go higher and higher, and more people are actually being under their arms as you go the level up. Yeah. In the new form of business that I've just mentioned, it is also possible that you are the employee, you are the manager, you are the senior manager, and you are also the general manager. You are everything. Yeah, in different kind of services, especially in in the consulting services. Sometimes in the service industry, where you sell your expertise, you are probably you are managing in your own way. Yeah? So this is the manager, and I have and this, whatever settings that we actually have, to function as a manager, the two important roles. So if you become manager in any organization, you must make sure that the two items that we need to strive for would be to strive for efficiency and also to strive for effectiveness. Yeah. So, and this must be balanced. Sometimes we always like to be efficient, but efficiency that is not getting to the goals that our organization has got to achieve will not be good as well. And therefore, putting efficiency and effectiveness are something that should be at the back of our mind. And what is actually efficiency? I think you can see, efficiency there is actually about resource management and resource usage. And by resource here, we mean, the people, the workers that we have, and the people, and the finance, the investment that we actually have. Yeah, we pay for the best. Sometimes, if this is always striking the balance between giving the very high pay to people who can actually do many things at the same time. Sometimes we hire 5 people to do one thing, or sometimes we can hire one person to do 5 things. So this is all about efficiencies in also managing our resources, and that's also including the facilities and the equipment that we have within our organization. Sometimes we have either we say, for example, notebook or laptop or desktop as an example, right? If we give everyone one piece of gadgets of this desktop, will they be actually using them all the time? Or even in universities scenario as an example, if we build a classroom, classes, will these classes be efficiently used? Are they going to be used 100%? Are they going to be used only 20% or 30%? So the management is all thinking about the efficient use of our resources and value for money that we're actually getting from our organization. And basically, as much as possible, the manager would strive for low waste, and not much actually being wasted in terms of resources, time, and also obviously also money. So that is efficiency, and this is why sometimes managers are not being a very popular figure, because they are squeezing, they squeeze the people. They become greedy in terms of expenditure, because they want to create the bigger values for money that they actually putting it. So this is why and they do not want to see things wasted, and they do not want, probably, sometimes the workers ask the manager to buy certain equipment, certain facilities, and if it is actually only used by one person, or actually used once a year, so this is where the manager's decision when it comes to deciding whether it is efficient or not, it is their job. And this is why sometimes it's not very popular. Of course, being a good manager also, they need to actually provide the rooms for the people to actually deliver their job, even if they don't buy the facilities that the workers are actually asking for. And being in management, you probably need to resolve this. A good manager always they don't simply say no to purchasing new equipment as an example. They will also help and identify how the workers can do the job without having to buy the equipment and also facility. Okay, that's what the manager is supposed to strive for. Yeah. And this is where it's going into the keyword what we call as effectiveness. Yeah. So stopping our workers and our staff, from buying certain things or getting certain things, it is not good if it is not going to deliver what we call as our KPI. So the other side of management would be striving for us what we call as the target. And our organization must have a target. In the business form, you're talking about sales, you're talking about dollar and cents, you're probably talking about good branding. So there are many different form of goal that organization can set up. Yeah. And it depends on the nature of that organization and the nature of the business. Yeah. But I think the message that I want to deliver here is that the goals can be very different. Can be financial, can be satisfaction, can be good brands and good names, good reputations. Yeah, can be anything. Yeah, but of course, all these attainment and goals the organization need to set and achieve would be something that is actually very, very much measurable. So the manager should strive for efficiency with regard to as little waste as possible, with a maximum return, with a high attainment of the goals that they have actually set. So this is the manager's function, responsibilities. One of the manager's responsibilities to strive for these two and strike them in the balance. Yeah. So good manager will do both. Yeah? And some managers are, we always if I do not know whether I can use again football league as an example. Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool spend so much money, which is actually resources, to get to their goals. And smaller teams, do not have that much resources. I think at one time, if you remember, Leicester, a small team in England. I hope you do follow footballs somehow. Or maybe you just follow the e-games. I'm not very sure, but if you follow football as an example, Leicester is a small football team with not much resources, but they managed to actually, become the champion for the league. I think a few years ago, maybe 7 to 8 years ago, and that means that their manager are actually very, very efficient, and at the same time effective. And there are teams, they have so much money, they keep buying players, but they never win anything. I do not know if we have Arsenal supporters here, but Arsene Wenger, he has a lot of resources, he has a lot of best players, but I don't remember him winning, Premier League in England as an example, or even Champions League, yeah. So this is, and of course, Arsene Wenger, this. Now I forgot the name of the Manchester United manager, Alex Ferguson, is it? Alex Ferguson, have actually attained those items. So I hope we can get a clear picture now what the managers are supposed to strive and how they need to strike the balance, and this is what you need to do later on if you become manager. This is management at all levels, and not just management at the top level. Yeah. Remember that we have management at different levels. So now we have, and therefore in preparing ourselves to become a good manager, there are many suggestions on different skill sets. I summarize here 4 key items that I personally think that's very important for any management to actually be successful. Yeah, and rule number 1 is that you must be an expert in your own field first. There are 2 ways of looking at this. Number 1 is that you can be respected for having the specific skills that people can rely on. Yeah, I think that's the first key to any any movement to the hierarchies, to the higher up hierarchies later on. Yeah, so we need to be able to build these strong technical skills, knowing what we need to do in our field of choice and field of expertise. Yeah? And we do our work, efficiently and also proficiently. Yeah? And even we talk about efficiency and also effectiveness. So even at that individual level, that has got to be developed. We can be efficient in a way of doing many things with limited resources, or doing more things with more resources. If we are given more resources, we can actually create more activities, more business activities and more productivity with more resources. So the efficiencies has got to always at the back of our mind, and the same thing with the effectiveness. Meaning to say to get to the targets of our responsibilities. Yeah? So having a very good technical skills is a must as far as I'm concerned. And the other important skills nowadays, it has been said so many times, but many of us sometimes, do not take a good care of this, what we call as interpersonal skills. Nowadays, it's very easy to get people irritated. It is very easy to get people not interested. It is very easy to get people, running away from what we want them to do. And simply because of lack of what we call as interpersonal skills. So this is extremely important, but it's going to be more difficult nowadays because it is much probably I believe it is probably much easier when we are actually engaging our engaging our colleagues, engaging our staff, engaging our workers face to face, where the facial expression, they can feel we are speaking from our hearts and minds, and therefore interpersonal skills in the face-to-face environment would be much easier. But I think the challenge that you're going to get now also in the future when you start to work in the workplace, interpersonal skills that you need to have when you communicate with people without even seeing them. This is why sometimes we can see a lot of our tendency, if you go through the netizens comment, they can be very rude, they can be very harsh, they can be very impersonal because they don't see the people who behind who actually read their messages, read their comments, read their stories. They don't see them, and what they see is only themselves, typing on the keyboard and expressing themselves without seeing how other people may be affected by what they actually write, the message. So, it is in the social environment, it is already very difficult for us to make sure that people get the message the way we intend it to be, and you can see that this can get misinterpreted in many different ways. You have seen a lot of examples along this line, and it is also more relevant and more important when you're talking about communicating about our jobs, communicating about our projects and the skills that we need to actually develop. So again, the challenge that we have now with people working at home. I'm just giving an example. 3 of my children have worked from home for over 1.5 years now. And sometimes they can get frustrated, can get stressed in different way. Stress at work in the workplace is actually different than stress actually doing work alone without having the ability to fully communicate, the way we have actually been able to do that when we have the face-to-face interaction. So interpersonal skills, at individual levels, more so at the management level, are extremely important. And conceptual is something that actually ability to see the bigger picture. I think this is also very important. Sometimes, we are so focused in our job and our function, we fail to see, what is the need of, the other competing, groups in our organization. As an example, this is conceptual thinking, or sometimes we keep talking about thinking outside the box. We do not confine ourselves within the context that we are trying to solve. We just need to step up and see how do we see the problem from the outside, outside the box, as an example. So having the conceptual thinking is actually very important, and of course this require a bit of exposure. I must say a lot of exposure, and I believe that something that you need to be able to develop. And this is also something is ability to ability to actually see the other side of the equation. And we have seen, if you can picture this, number 9, it's actually written in, if you flip them, it can be seen as number 6, correct? And this is what, ability to see, because a lot of people see their side is actually, what they think is actually correct, what they think is actually the best, and the other groups also actually seeing the same, saying the same thing, but saying a different thing. But they are seeing, because they are actually seeing different thing. This is why they are saying different thing. But they are all they all can be correct. So this is actually a challenge in the skills, the thinking skills, conceptual thinking skills, conceptual skills that we need to be able to develop by having the ability to to see the good sides of any opinions or any groups and all yeah. And diagnostic skills, yeah, are also very important. This is actually trying the ability to actually to in of course in medical terms to cure. So if you want to find the right cure, you need to know what are the disease. If it is actually a flu, you do not give them the coughing medicines. So the same thing in organization also. If people are depressed, as an example, you need to be able to see why they are depressed. Is it is it a family problem? Is it personal relationship problems, or is it even sometimes even is it the room? The way the office actually being organized, there's no proper ventilation, there is no proper air conditions. So the manager has got to actually be able to diagnose the problems, basically. The problem has got to be recognized, and the problem has got to be solved. So these are four what I consider to be very important management skills that we need to have. And actually it is not just the skills for management. If you ask me, this is the basic skills that we need for our daily life even. So this is what is making it more interesting and more relevant. Yeah. So we in our daily life we need many of these skills as well. Yeah. So okay, those are what I consider as an introduction to management. What is management? And here, before we go into the management functions, I think it was quite clear mentioned in the video that some people have the opinion that leaders and managers are two different people, and some like this video I saying it can be the same person but doing different thing, or the sides of the two sides of the same coin. Yeah? And most of the time they are actually interrelated. Again, if I can use football as an example, football manager, they are just not organizing, they are just not making sure that they buy the best players with the little money as possible, but they also motivate, they also inspire, they also lead with examples. So but they are called what, football manager, right? So and I think the same thing also true in organizations like universities. If I can actually relate this, head departments, the deans, they need to manage, and also they need to lead through inspiring their people, their staff, their workers to actually get out of their comfort zone and deliver the things, are motivated to actually deliver the things for their organization. So basically, leaders must lead, and they also think more strategically. This is why when you become head of your departments, head of your organizations, head of your divisions, obviously you would have followers, and you need to operate in more strategic way. This is in order for you to actually function as a leader. Yeah? And also you need to inspire. Inspire meaning to say that sometimes people own your vision as if it is their vision. If I can quote an example of that everybody probably can relate, Martin Luther King. We have a dreams, and it is actually his visions, but every followers internalize. The moment your staff, your followers internalize your vision as if it is their vision, then you are a leader. Yeah. So of course you need to be able to communicate this vision, and be able to set the to set these goals, and inspiring others, because most of the time the leaders do not know the technical details of each of the functions of the organization. Yeah. And this is where the concept of empowerment comes in. Yeah, we say let the managers manage, the leaders lead. Yeah, so this is what we need to be able to do. Yeah, and of course the management, the managers would again, on one hand, if you are having to manage your organization, not just lead. If you need to be able to operate more tactically, and you're actually directing, organizing, and also supporting. Yeah, so we have seen this. I hope you can pick up the ideas about the difference between managers and leaders. And the second videos about leaders and management, you can see that he is of the view that it is like two different group of people. Yeah. So again, I think it is no contradiction with the first one, because the first one is saying that you are doing two different functions as a one person. Yeah. But I hope you can clearly differentiate between a manager and also a leader. So leader inspires, creates, eliminates, and anticipates, and manager supervise, implements, solves, and satisfies. So let us look into, I think the time's actually not on our side. Let us go into the management functions. These are the 5 areas of functions that management is supposed to do. If you go through the management resources, sometimes they organize the management functions into 4 functions, but many of the new publications and new ideas, management functions are actually about 5 functions. This is planning, organizing, staffing, and it is the staffing that is actually not in the top, what they call this, in the top figures here. Yeah? It has a planning, it has organizing, leading, and also controlling. It doesn't have staffing. And staffing here is all about planning for recruitment, planning for succession planning, who's supposed to come in, who's supposed to leave the organization. This is what we call as human resource. Yeah? It is actually a very important function. So this diagram here that we have pretty much capture what we call as a functions of management. Yeah? And the other thing that I want to highlight to you as well, that the management function would organize from these 5 management functions, it would organize the people and also the organization. Yeah? So I do not want to repeat what has been said, but planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling is a function. So if a manager do not plan, they are not a manager. If managers are not organizing, they are not manager. Yeah, and if managers are not getting the right people, again, as I mentioned about the football manager, if you are not recruiting, you are not identifying, the right people with the right skills, then you are not doing the management part. Sometimes the manager just leave the things to human resource department to do their job. Without having, they need to be able to see the kind of qualities and the skill set that they require the human resource management to recruit and to engage. Yeah? And obviously, directing and leading is also very important. Many of the times, our workers have no clue what to be done, so they need some directions and some coaching sometimes, a little bit of inspirations and all that. And managers do that, giving some direction if people lost their way. Yeah? And controlling is also very important, and this is where we set up performance appraisal, getting a midterm review, evaluate if certain things are on track. This is why we always have, quality management system is, I hope you get yourself familiar with, that can be captured by what we call as a quality management system that is actually monitoring the performance, and manager would be responsible for that task as well. Yeah. So this is the whole functions of the management. And so what is a people management? I think the component of the management that really is related to the people. Yeah. So it's part of human resource management. process of acquisitions, optimizing retention in the organization. Also involves in planning for trainings, motivating and directing, giving them what we call as CPDs, continuing professional development training and courses and whatnot. So we need to be able to manage people so that they are happy, they have the right skill set, and they can deliver. They have the necessary attitude, they have the necessary mindset, and they have the necessary skills to deliver our job. This is what we need to do, the management. The poor management will keep saying, do your job, you do your job, without facilitating the trainings, without facilitating, what is actually the pain points that our people are actually having. So, people management is actually very, very important. Including, I mentioned that, including the wellness and also the safety, the concern of our staff. So it's got to be there. And so leaders and managers use people management mostly in the following situation. So the skill that you need to do, resolving conflicts as always comes, meeting the deadlines, providing educate and training, to existing employees, and also creating workplace culture. I mentioned this in the earlier slides. And the components of the people management would be, creating of the future workforce. I think this is workforce of the future. This is what the management is supposed to be thinking in a way of, if they want to see the organization to expand and succeed in the future, they cannot be just sitting and be complacent with what they have. So management, in a way of leading the organization, need to think ahead of of what they are currently doing, and they need to be able to understand the people who make up the organizations. Again, in our situation, we have people from different background, with people with different beliefs. We have people from different preparations and different skill set. So how do you actually understand them and organize them in a very good way? And establishing a very effective communication. Effective communication can be at personal level and also can be at organizational level. So sometimes the protocols, meaning to say, if anything comes up, who is it that we need to report to? Who is it that we need to be able to confront with? So it is about the system, not just about delivering it, but also putting up the system. Sometimes you have a open platform for people to actually just air their views. But sometimes they need to come to you in person also if they want. So that establishing the system of communications is so very important. And most of the failures of job not get done because of the failure in communicating. And people think that somebody else is actually doing it, and everybody thinks that somebody else is actually supposed to deliver the task, but everybody else is thinking that somebody else is going to do it. So this is when the failure of communication, and therefore the failure of organization will come in. And setting the ground better for more reliable and faster collaboration. So collaborative platforms and collaborative environment is one of the most important factors in a very effective and also efficient organization. So sometimes we the manager organization by design they put the staff to compete, but this is actually not not contradictory to the collaboration. So I think the balance between collaborating and competing so that they can actually deliver their best are something that our the manager need to be able to do. But what is actually important is that if managers can actually squeeze the best out of the talent that they have, 1 + 1 is not equals to 2. 1 + 1 can equal to 10. This is where the collaboration, the synergy that the manager has got to set up has got to be there. And I think what is also important, point number 5, making the best use of healthy differences. Many of us, sometimes we are not comfortable with people with different views, people with different opinion, people with different culture, people with, but we cannot avoid these differences, we are even different in, you know, in the drink that we prefer. You know, some of us like TOI, some people like Nescafe, some people like latte, some people, you know, like, you know, juice, you know, and we are different even in the food and the drink that we take, more so, you know, in the views and the approach that we have. And you know, just like the way we choose our food and our drinks, there's nothing wrong with them, and in fact they are actually you know, enrich the organization, I think. But the best way is actually making sure that these differences are not creating the unnecessary you know, conflicts and unnecessary negative you know, phenomena in our organization. Yeah. So manager, you know, having the ability to acknowledge the differences and make the best out of the difference, you know. And I think this is the message that I'm trying to say here, is that sometimes, you know, we get rid of people who are different than us, but you know, that could be a waste. Because we need people who are actually complementing to our organization. They can be very different, but they need to be organized in a way of complementing. Of course, we need to be very careful also by not having people who are toxic, who are destructive, you know, who are negative in organization. This is not what we mean by different views. You know, people can have a different view, but they do not have to be toxic. They do not have to be destructive. They do not need to be negative. Yeah. So I think I hope that we can actually differentiate between this level of differences and different level of, you know, toxic, you know, negativity and that we sometimes see in organization. Or you know, in my view, we need to be able to either turn these people around, or we just get rid of them because they are not helping. In fact, they are dragging, they're going to drag the organization down through their negativity and, you know, destructive behaviors. Yeah? So I hope we can actually differentiate the difference between differences in views, differences in preference, differences in approach with attitudes that our staff and our people have in our organizations. Yeah? So these are some of the, you know, I do not want to, again, to go into details. Each one of these require a special, you know, sessions and all. But this is the people, you know, management skills that, you know, sometimes we do not, you know, we do not need to have all of them because they are needed in different settings, in different organizations. Yeah, but they're particularly pretty much, you know, cut across in most of the circumstances that we have. Yeah, active listening. Probably I want to highlight here that you know, the problem with most of the problem that we have is that we are very quick at judgment. We are very quick in responding. We are very quick in listening. Very quick in speaking and giving our views before we even listen. Yeah, before we even hear, you know, the other side of the stories, the other side of the views and all. Yeah, so you know, being a leader, a manager later on, you know, to listen, and in fact. In one of the recommendations, you know, of what good leaders is supposed to be. Good leaders, I think you probably, after this, you can Google Snack, Mr. Snack. Is it? I can share with. I also have a list. I also have his video, the list of my slides here. That, you know, he said that, you know, leaders need to speak the last. You know, so in other words, we need to be able to listen first before we are actually providing answers and providing solutions and all. So the rest of it are also equally important. You know, accountability. We must be able to take responsibility and accountability. And sometimes good leaders, you know, will attribute success organization to their people, but will take the blame for the failures of the organization. So this is different. This is what we mean by accountability and responsibility, and what a sign of a good leaders are. You know, they do not take the credits for success, but they take the blame when it comes to the failures of organization. So these are some of the management skills, and this is why, you know, some people are willing to die for some leaders because they see, you know, the qualities and the of leaders that they have. Yeah. So this is the management skills. So those are what we call as people's management. Remember that in functions of management, we are talking about managing the people, and there's also what we call as managing the organization. Organization management, we need to be able to put the structure of the organization. We need to be very systematic in way of putting responsibilities, putting who's supposed to be doing what, who's supposed to be in what department. What department are we supposed to have? What different function? So managing our organization is what we call as management function. How do we actually change even our structure of our organization? And quite obviously, our organization can take a different form. Some organization is actually business organization where it is for profit, as an example. But there are also organizations actually doing what we call as a non-governmental work, voluntary work, and the structure and organizing that, managing that organization would be very different than managing the business organization, as an example. And there is also, a third category, what we call as social enterprise. Social enterprise is between for-profit and for non-profit. Yeah. So business social enterprise is a new form of organizational structure that we have, that we need to be able to see how do we actually manage them. Obviously, what is not listed here is government department, public services. They are also organization that need to be managed, and they also have their own structure to that we need to deal with. So this is the last slide that I have for management function. I hope you have paid attention, but you can always go to the videos that I have actually shared, and there are more videos here. Management study guides, the difference. There's another video that I didn't put here. But anyway, there are a lot of very good videos on leadership. So this is just a small component of that. So by all means, you are not limited to these videos. They are practically delivering almost similar key messages, but maybe from different perspective and different experience. So Prof Rahim, I stop here. If there is any students who would like to, or maybe if you would like to add on to what have been shared here, Prof Rahim.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Prof Dato. I think now I know which football team you are supporting. Okay. Right. Probably some of the students would like to ask question, but anyway, just to highlight what being mentioned by Prof Dato Salih, it's not an easy task to become a manager, or what. Just to become a good manager is not that easy task. Because to become a good leader also is a more difficult task. But I think from one of the video being shared just now, the speaker mentioned about a good leader is not born. It can be trained. So I hope that some of the key messages that are being highlighted either from Prof Dato Salih lecture as well as the video can also motivate some of you to become a good manager and to become a leader one day. Right?
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we give some. Is there anyone writing things in the chat room? No.
I cannot see anything.
Yeah. Anyone? Students? I'm sure some of you are leading certain, organizations, certain groups. If any of these are actually making useful tips for you, or maybe you can also share your experiences. Anyone? So, Prof Rahim, we will open our, at least in my class, I will open the WhatsApp for students to, further ask questions. if the student have no question, maybe we can wrap up. Huh?
Okay. Before that, Dato, maybe just a quick question to you. As the top management of various organization, you had a good experience in the faculty, at the university level, at the same time at the ministry, and also leading companies, consulting company, and so on. Is there, just now you shared about people management. I found out that that is one of the most, I think that the most difficult part, being a manager, being a leader, to manage people. Perception of your employees, perception of your clients. Maybe you can have, in your opinion, what can be done to manage people better. Thank you, Dato.
Thank you, Prof. Rahim. Um, uh, what I have actually observed, over the years, we must have the assumption, and we must have the understanding that everyone are actually going for good thing. Meaning to say that when they are giving an opinion, when they are giving their concern, this is out of a good intention. But but sometimes that opinion are actually contradicting to what others are also saying. So I think understanding the intention, not just what they say, but understanding what they say is actually more important. And this is why, if I can relate to my experience in organizing the development of Malaysia Higher Education Blueprint, I'm not sure whether our students are aware that we have a higher education blueprint in the country. It has been 5 years now, 6 years now. Organizing a huge document like that, when people have a strong opinion on many things, and many of these strong opinions are sometimes opposite to each other. But over time you can see that there are underlying commonalities, between them. So I think what you need to be able to do is that try to bring them to their common, their common ground, and move it from there. So I think ability to be able to see, what is actually connecting between these two seemingly opposing views. So I think this is what a manager needs to be able to do if you're actually trying to get the best, because it is also very easy to say that, okay, I agree with this opinion. I do not want to have him in my team, or I do not want to consider his view. I think good manager and good leader would listen and would consider, but it doesn't mean that they need to follow, but you have actually taken their views into your consideration. I think there are two different things between being decisive and also being open to views. Sometimes people, are not decisive because there are so many opinions, and therefore they cannot make any decision. That is also not good. Having faced with many different views that is actually, very different from one another, but you need to be able to decide from those different views how to move forward. So I think managers and leaders, more so the leaders, need to be able to move forward despite what we say as the differences. And I think the challenge would be, how do you again convince the people whose view may not be taken, although has been considered, but may not be taken for us to move forward. And I think the other key message that I always put in my management skills would be, it is always the organization interests are more important than individual interests, or a bigger group's interests are more important than smaller group interests. This is where the communities are more important than individual preferences. If they are in conflict, if they are in line, it's okay. That kind of thing. So I think that is the hierarchy of making a decisions, and sometimes leaders need to make a very hard decision to make one or two persons unhappy. of course, there is a way of actually addressing those as well, but organization has got to move and make decisions and move forwards. Yeah.